Here's the problem, guys. You are working so hard on trying to grow your YouTube channel, getting traction, and one of the biggest things that is holding you back is that people just aren't connecting with you, your brand, your content, your material, and they're not taking the action you want, which is to watch your video and then to keep watching the video and watch more videos and eventually maybe even become a customer of your online course or a consultation or whatever it is that you are growing, that business around your channel. It's just really hard to get traction when you are missing a brand that does not mean something or connect with people on an emotional level fast enough. And that's what we want to get into here today is talk about how do we use a storytelling framework to position our brand in such a way that these people quickly not only understand who we are, what we do, the benefit is for them, but start to feel something as a result that holds their attention, leads to more watch time, more subscriptions on your channel, and more transactions for your business. We're going to have a lot of fun diving into that in depth today, giving you a framework, a proven framework that you can use to start turning that around on your channel today, just like this guy we're going to talk to did for me in this episode.
Hey, welcome to the Video Creators Podcast. You know how you put a lot of time and energy into your YouTube channel for not nearly enough growth? Yeah, we get it. We're here today to help you change that. If you're trying to accelerate your channel's momentum, become more profitable, and change the lives of more people than ever before, today's episode will help you move forward with confidence. So far, our team is responsible for helping clients generate over 20 billion views on YouTube. And now to help you, here's the Video Creators team.
Hello, creators. Welcome back to another Video Creators Podcast episode like we do here for you every Monday here on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you listen to your podcast. We love showing up with you here every week just to give you something that's going to help you not only grow your YouTube channel and grow your business, but grow both of those so you can spread your message, reach more people, and change their lives. But you don't reach people and change their lives if you don't first hook and grab their attention. Today, I want to talk with Park. He's the host of Business for Story podcast here on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to him. And he has been doing storytelling for decades around brands. In fact, he has been labeled the world's most industrious storyteller. He has helped so many brands grow by over 600% with his storytelling techniques. And after you listen to him here, it's going to make sense what that is and how it works and how you can take it. He's going to give us a very simple framework that we can start using on our very next video on our channel, in our business, and he actually workshops mine with me and helps me make mine better here so you can see it in action live, not live, but you know what I mean, recorded here on the podcast. You'll get to experience it along with me here. In the description of this podcast episode, you can go find more information about Park, to his Story of Business podcast, as well as an online course of his that I took to really help dial in this brand narrative for you so that you can communicate more clearly, that you and other people very immediately understand who you are, what you're about, and why they should listen and follow along. So go check out his links down there. And but before we do that, though, I'm going to introduce you to a creator. For this week's Creator Spotlight, I want to introduce you to Caleb Ashton from the YouTube channel Phoenix Resale. We did a consultation not too long ago, a few weeks ago, and really diving into his channel. He's had a lot of success with it. He's got several 100,000 subscribers, is providing a full-time income for him and his family as he's exploring his journey about buying and reselling video games. And it's just really fascinating what he's doing there. I put a link in the show notes of his channel. But one of the things that stood out to me in my consultation with him that I don't always hear from creators is just how much time and focused attention he gives to his thumbnails, right? And I know it's like one of those things that we all know we're supposed to do, but we're like, gosh, right? So he spends like hours and hours and hours on his thumbnails. We talked about that a little bit, but I asked him like, hey, could you share with the audience, you guys, thank you. You know, I know some of you don't like that word audience, but we're going with it. Could you share with the audience some of the things, like the principles that you have found that really work in your thumbnails, and what advice would you give to someone else who just feels like they're struggling with their thumbnails? Here's a little recording of our conversation together and what he would share with you in order to help you level up your thumbnails. Caleb, thanks so much for the opportunity to dive into your channel. It's been fun watching what you're doing here and getting to know you a little bit, especially since you're in Kentucky with me. So when
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're a little further south than me. I'm up in the Cincinnati area. You're in the Lexington area.
Yep.
When you tell people you're from Kentucky, do you get the same thing I get where people are like Kentucky? They think bluegrass, they think moonshine, they think rednecks.
For me, they think fried chicken the most.
Oh, why don't I get that? I totally get the other stuff. Well, anyway, tell us about your channel here and what you're doing here on YouTube.
Yeah, it's called Phoenix Resale, and it's a channel that I started about a year after I started a side hustle of flipping random stuff from yard sales and thrift stores online on eBay and Amazon as just some side income when my wife was in law school. And I started doing that because I saw other people doing it on YouTube and thought that I would try it for myself, and ended up starting my own channel. And now I focus primarily on video games, and my channel revolves around just my constant buying and selling video games, making new connections, and finding more ways to move video games around.
Yeah, it was fun to watch. I learned a lot. I'm like, okay, I've been thinking about buying a Nintendo Switch for myself just so I can play games that I want to play that we probably shouldn't let the kids watch, all the time. And I was like, oh, a Switch might be a way I could do that easier. But now I know not to go to Amazon, and I should be calling can you call a pawn shop, or do you just need to show up?
No, you can call them.
Okay, I'm going to call.
Ask them what kind of stuff they have.
Yeah, I'm probably going to do that. But one of the things that came up in our conversation here about your channel that I thought was really interesting is I hear a lot of things from creators. We do almost 1,000 of these types of sessions every year. And one of the things that you said that was like, oh, that's different, is you're like, Tim, I actually really enjoy making my thumbnails. I'm like, yeah, interesting. So tell me about, one of the things you said is you spend a lot of time on these thumbnails and you really enjoy making them. Mm-hmm. Tell us about your process of making a thumbnail, and any tips that you go into that process that you think would be helpful for other creators who are like, I hate making my thumbnails and I don't know how to make good ones.
Yeah, for sure. So the standard in my niche, which is, resale, flipping stuff, it varies a little bit when you get into like the video game niche, but for people who are like out there hunting for stuff like me, is to take one of the most compelling screenshots of whatever your, GoPro footage is, and then like use that with maybe an arrow and some text to be the thumbnail of the video. Most other creators I found are using Canva. So I taught myself Photoshop because I thought it would help my like colors pop a lot better and be able to isolate like different elements that I wanted to edit differently. So I guess my first piece of advice would be like, it helps a lot to be willing to go the extra mile that your competition doesn't necessarily.
Yeah.
So I think that's been one of the biggest things that has set my channel apart, is that some of the colors and the elements and the saturation, the sharpness, all of those little things that you don't necessarily recognize like just as a casual viewer, but that subconsciously really make a thumbnail stand out. If you're willing to just spend a couple days teaching yourself about whatever software you are using and how to really optimize it, I think it'll pay really big dividends for you. So that would be, at least it has for me. Like you can see a very clear difference in my channel when I transitioned from Canva to using Photoshop. I think my thumbnails really went up in quality. The other thing that I would say that I think about a lot is the unity of your title and your thumbnail. Not unity, but the complementary nature of them.
Right. Yeah.
So one thing that I notice a lot is some other channels will have like either a really good thumbnail or a really good title, but they won't necessarily relate to one another very well. Like they don't seem like they're telling the same story. And so that's something that I always want my thumbnail to be an illustration of the exact point that my title is making. And honestly, I think people's eyes land on the thumbnail first. So my title really should drive home the point that my thumbnail is already making, is kind of the goal of that. So I want them to be cooperating, and I want it to be illustrating the exact same thing that is in my title, and just in a way that, is visually compelling.
Yeah. That's great. When you switch from Canva to Photoshop, going back to that one for a second, and you said the thumbnails improved. When you say improved, how are you determining, did they improve? Did you see a jump in like click-through rates and impressions or more engagement? Or was there anything that you can point to be like, aha, that's why that was worth it?
I would say a big way that I'm kind of judging it is they looked a lot more like how I wanted them to, and how I felt my largest, like some of the best creators on the platform looked like. They looked less amateurish to me. But I will also say that period was one of pretty significant growth for the channel. It's hard to completely isolate, because I think I was also getting a lot better at like storytelling and other elements of video. So I can't say specifically it's because of Photoshop, but I think it definitely helped.
Yeah, you're doing a whole bunch of things at the same time to help grow this. And I probably should have said this up front for everyone who's listening. Sorry, I just got excited. Skipped over it. But yeah, you started growing this channel. You started the channel at around 2 years ago, right? Is that right? And over the course of 2 years, he has 163,000 subscribers, getting an average of about 81,000 views per video. So the storytelling combined with the thumbnails and the titles and the niche and everything you're doing, like, you are pretty much at the top of this niche. There's maybe a few other people who got like a little bit of an edge, but for the most part, in 2 years, you went boom, like this is how big this niche is. And hopefully through our conversation here today, you've got a couple ideas of how you can grow past it and expand, and while also keeping the current audience engaged. But this thumbnail thing has been really important for a lot of that growth and that kind of quick success. And I think you said it, we talked about this in our session. It was like, you could spend a lot of time making the video, but if no one's enticed to click on it, then it doesn't really matter. So there's not too many creators I've heard say what you said, which is I love making the thumbnails and I spend a lot of time on them. So
yeah, I do. And one of the pieces of advice that you gave me that I haven't been doing so far, at least in the way that you suggested, is making multiple and just cycling them out. Sometimes I'll make a second one when I see the first one isn't performing how I wanted it to, and sort of go back to the drawing board and ask myself, okay, how can I possibly improve this? But I rarely make a discipline of having multiple in the queue ready to just test stuff out, especially as, like we talked about in our conversation, I'm considering, okay, will just like simplifying stuff and having less elements overall in the thumbnail, and these different strategic points, trying to isolate each one of those so that I can see the data associated with each one. I think you're right that could be a really helpful next step in determining what really is optimal.
Well, one of the things we didn't talk about, and I didn't mention that another thing that happens, another benefit to making multiple thumbnails or coming up with multiple different titles for a piece of content, especially before you even hit record, is that your first idea is rarely your best idea. And so it's important to push through like the most obvious ones that come to mind, the most obvious titles, most obvious thumbnails. And for us and our team is usually we find when we you can usually pop out like 10 thumbnail title ideas pretty quickly for a piece of content. But when you start pushing towards like the 20, 25 ideas mark, you're like starting to hit some walls. And then it's on the other side of that wall, you're like, oh my gosh, that's it, right? But you don't get to the other side of that wall until you go through a whole bunch of ones that you think are good, but the great one is kind of elusive. You got to work for that one a little bit more. But like we talked about in our session, though, like we want to focus on doing 20% more work for 80% more results. And that's one of those areas where you're going to do 20% more work on the titles and thumbnails to get 80% more results after that video is published, just by avoiding going with the most obvious first one that comes to mind. So,
I would definitely agree. So far, I've definitely seen a lot of solid results with putting more effort into my thumbnails. So I'm not at all opposed to putting more than I already am into them and seeing where it takes me.
Yeah. Well, I can tell that you're a hard worker, and I love it on your channel. One of the things you talk about is no excuses, opportunity over excuses. And I think that I can clearly see that here with you and your channel. And so you're going to take for that opportunity, no excuses, and you're going to go to the next level. So I'm excited to see it happen.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. If you guys want to check out his channel, check out the show notes. You'll find a link to his channel down there below. You can check it out and see what his thumbnails are like and engage in his story as he continues to grow and move forward with flipping video games and telling really amazing stories around them. It's just so fun to get into consultations like that and hear creators who are just going out, they're killing it, they're dragging it home, they're working hard, they're just figuring out like, how do I get to the next level? How do I keep improving? It's just so fun to talk to creators like that and set them up with a plan that they can use to grow even faster, reach even more people, and change their lives. If you're feeling a little bit stuck on your channel and you want my eyeballs or someone from my team to sit down with you for an hour, you can go to videocreators.com/consulting and sign up for a 1-hour session there. We will look at your channel ahead of time, come prepared with notes and ready to dive into your channel to give you next steps that you need to take to really overcome the roadblocks that are holding you back, overcome the obstacles that you're trying to overcome so that you can grow that channel, reach more people, and grow your business as a result. So go to videocreators.com/consulting. You can find a schedule right there on my calendar or someone on my team's calendar and book it and get it right on your schedule and on ours. And we're really looking forward to diving into your channel to help you get to the next level. And now, without any further ado, let's dive into this conversation with Park from the Business of Story podcast. Park, thank you so much for joining us here today. It's good to see you.
Tim, thanks for having me. It's an honor. It's great running into its social media marketing world, and that's in person, which was kind of odd following COVID, but nice and so ripe. And now we're back in the virtual domain.
Yeah, we had dinner together at a restaurant. You know, you're at a fancy restaurant when you can't really see what you're eating because they turn the lights down low enough, so you kind of have to guess a little bit. But no, it was really good. And I've been wanting to talk. I met you a couple years ago, and when Brian Dixon, mutual friend of ours, introduced us, and I was like,
right. Yeah.
And you told me what you do. I'm like, oh my gosh, like this guy and I need to talk. So I've been kind of stalking you a little bit, and then so I'm glad that we finally get to talk again now. Yeah. So it's so important for YouTube creators and brands in general. And not a lot of YouTube creators consider themselves to be brands. They think of themselves primarily as creators, but they are brands in that they need to accomplish a lot of the same things that a brand does, which is how do I get someone to quickly understand who we are, what we're all about, and the value that we're providing, and even get them to have some sort of emotional connection with them in order to really grow and hold people's attention and things. So how would you go about helping someone like me or creators like us be able to do that very quickly in video content on YouTube on a brand level? What would that look like?
Yeah, well, I agree with you, Tim, that everybody is a brand. I mean, even if you don't think of yourself as a brand, your viewer thinks of you as a brand, and they may not be thinking of you in the logical frontal cortex, executive functioning brain, but in their limbic system, the subconscious brain, which really does the majority of our thinking for us, is trying to categorize you. Who are you? Are you smart? Are you wise? Are you witty? Are you a jerk? Do I want to watch? Do I not want to watch? I mean, it's playing back there. So if you are not intentionally telling or expressing your brand story to that viewer, they're going to make up a story for you. And it's probably not the story you intended unless you intentionally tell them the story.
I've seen that so many times where I'm working with a creator on YouTube, and they'll be like, I don't know why my channel's not growing anymore. I haven't changed anything. I'm doing the same thing I always did. And the thing they've always did is like they got stuck into a rut of a certain style or a certain format or a certain topic. And so in the absence of them telling their audience what their brand is all about, the brand just figured that it was about that style of content or it was about that thing that they did. But when they get bored of the thing, then the audience starts dissipating and goes away because as far as they understand it, the brand is just about that style or something. It's not about something bigger. And then the thing that got them to grow no longer gets them to grow. So before we dive into this though, I'd love to hear your story for people who are like, okay, Park sounds like a cool guy. Who is this guy and what's his story? Where did he come from? So tell us a little about your backstory and how you got here.
Well, I'll start with, and you probably have mentioned this in the opening, that clients like to call me the world's most industrious storyteller. And when I first heard that, I was a little ashamed, like that's rather braggadocious. But then, Tim, I actually liked it because it's like, man, I got to live into that. And it's kind of fun. It's kind of tongue in cheek. So everything I do around story and story development is really about branding. And I work very, very hard at it to make those stories work on behalf of customers. So I've been in the branding, advertising, marketing world for 35 plus years, been doing this a long damn time. I ran my own ad agency in Phoenix, Arizona called Park & Co. for 20 of those years. I enjoyed it for 10 of those years. And then the second half of my career at Park & Co. before I pivoted totally into business of story is I was studying story starting about 2002, 2003. And the reason, Tim, was that I came from the traditional realm of advertising marketing. So TV, radio, print, outdoor, direct mail, public relations, events, and there was no Yelp. So our brands and our customers own the influence of mass media. But then, of course, as you all know, I'm a little bit older in this than you are, but you've grown up in it. That all completely changed with the advent of the internet, e-commerce, and then, of course, social media. So while brands used to own the influence of social or influence of media, social media made the masses the media. And we are all bombarded with communication. Most of it just ricochets off of our heads because this limbic primal brain of ours doesn't know what to deal with it, unless we put it in the form of a story. So I studied it from the hero's journey to the Pixar way to story brand and all these complicated ways of doing. In fact, I even wrote a book on my 10-step story cycle system called Brand Bewitchery that walks you through this brand story strategy creation process. And all of that, and what you probably heard sitting in the session, well, what you did hear sitting in the session at Social Media Marketing World, is I have learned it all comes down to this simple framework called the and, but, therefore, the ABT. So now everywhere I go, every brand I work on, every masterclass or keynote I give, that's the first place I start teaching the and, but, and therefore, because it is from there that all of the rest of your powerful, persuasive brand storytelling talents get revealed. And so I think we're here today to talk about the ABT because it's the one takeaway your viewers and listeners can apply immediately to get to dial in their brand story. I like to say, clarify your story to amplify your impact and ultimately simplify your life.
Well, this is going to be good because, guys, I did a little homework for this episode and I worked on my ABT, which Park will walk us through here in a second. And we'll get to workshop it here. And it'll be fun for you guys to see this process. I hope it's fun. It might be more fun for you than for me, but we'll see this process of actually workshopping it and working through it to get to a place where it brings clarity, not only for you, but also for all your viewers, all your customers, and the people who are following you on social media in general. So walk us through the ABT. The problem being up front that brands are unclear, and if you confuse, you lose, and people won't stick around. You won't get the watch time. So how do we make our brand more clear and emotional at the same time to someone who's following us online?
Yeah, because nobody buys boring. And if you're not clear, you're boring and confusing. So the and, but, and therefore is based off of these three words. And, but, therefore, as you may have guessed. And they work because they use the three forces of story of agreement, contradiction, and consequence. And that's important, Tim, because our limbic brain, our primal brain that has not evolved appreciably since our ancestors navigated and survived the savannah, is the same brain we use to navigate and survive the internet and this onslaught of communication. It loves the ABT because this brain is a cause and effect, pattern-seeking apparatus. It's there for the survival of our being. So when we speak to it in a very causal way, cause and effect, then we get it leaning in and it's like, give me the answer. What's the answer? And of course, the answer is always you and your brand. So the and is a statement of agreement up top. You want to paint an aspirational, bright picture for your audience. The but is the contradiction to that picture. Why don't they have it? The therefore is here's how you are going to help them get it. And if you're going to put it together, you use these basically answers to these 5 questions. Number 1, who's your audience? You name them right up top. What do they want in relation to what you have to offer? And why is it important to them to create a brighter tomorrow for them? That's your and statement of agreement. You get one and. You don't want to go and, because you'll bore them to death. But here's the conflict. Why don't they currently have it? What's standing in their way that is then also impacting them emotionally why they don't have that? Therefore, how are you uniquely equipped to help them get it? And the defining of your brand story in this one floor elevator pitch, because that's all it takes to get them there. You are making who you are, what you stand for, and how you are uniquely positioned to help them crystal clear in their minds. They don't have to work for it. They're like, wow, that's awesome. Tell me more.
What you described there at the end is the wow, that's awesome. Like that's the emotion that it invokes in people. And that's what grabs their attention and holds their attention, whether it's through a YouTube video or it's an email campaign or it's a tweet or an Instagram post. Like you can use, in fact, you can even use this for podcasting, which, you know, I think I'm going to try to do in more intros coming up in later, coming up soon, where it's like, you know, the thing you want, and you want it for this reason, but obstacles that you're facing, therefore solution, right? Here's what we're going to talk about.
Therefore, on today's show, I'm featuring so-and-so to help you walk through that.
You even told me right before we hit record here, you just did it for this episode. I'm like, man, I should have recorded that. You want to give us that example again? Do you remember what you said?
It was something like you, and I'm speaking to your viewers. And by the way, when you're writing your ABTs, do the pronoun switch. You know, say you right up top, so it makes you focus on, you know, the audience. So in this case, you are an amazing YouTube content creator, and if you can connect with your audience on a deep level, you can convert them into lifelong viewers and customers. But maybe you're not connecting as well as you could because you're not following a proven format to story. Therefore, connect on this deep primal level using the and, but, and therefore, which my guest today has learned all powerful, persuasive business and organizational storytelling begins. Ladies and gentlemen, here's Park Howell, the world's most industrious storyteller. Boom, there you go.
I work on putting one of these together for video creators.
Nice.
Because I'll just be honest with you up front here. Actually, I have two because I'm like, there's a lot of different options here when I started working on it. And by the way, if you guys want to work through this process in more detail, there's a link in the show notes of this episode. Park has I call it like a mini course, but not mini in the sense of like, it's short. It took me about like an hour, 90 minutes or so to get through the whole thing and develop all this. But super valuable to sit down and just dedicate some time and some headspace to really figuring out how do I bring clarity to my brand for those first time viewers on YouTube, for those people who are just discovering me for the first time. When someone asks me like, hey, Tim, what do you do? Oh, now I know what to say. Like, because right now I'm like, well, it's complicated. Like, how old are you? That might just change how I explain this, you know? But so I started doing this exercise. I went through your course, Park, and here's what I came up with. The first one. I want you to poke holes at it, help me make it better. I legitimately want to make this better just because like I'm thinking of the front page of our website. Like we're always wrestling. Like, what do we put there? Like, what's that headline that's just like, yes, that's who we are and what we do and why we do it and what it matters without writing like a dissertation, right? Like, what do we put there? And we have always like wrestled with that. And it could be the front page of the website, but it's also like the channel art and the YouTube channel. It's also like that 5-second branded intro that sometimes brands have in their content. Like, what goes there? Like, no, it's not just your logo. That doesn't help people. You need to make the brand mean something during those quick 5 seconds. And so this can be a really valuable tool to use, but it's really hard to tear it down. So here's what I got. Okay. Just to kind of say up front that this is something that I feel like I struggle with. You want to grow your YouTube channel and experience the freedom of owning your own business, but your efforts are not getting results. Therefore, we connect you with a YouTube strategist who will help you confidently grow.
Okay. So good. I mean, fantastic start. Nice, sweet, to the point. I would like a little bit more specificity because I think there's probably 10,000 competitors out there that could say the exact same thing.
Okay, you want my second one?
Yeah, let's hear your second one.
Okay, because there's so many different things that our audience wants, and there's different things that we do, and there's different therefores of how we give a solution. So I'm like, I could add this a number of different ways. Here's another one. You want to grow your YouTube audience and experience the freedom of a thriving business, but your videos aren't getting much traction. Therefore, we provide a tailored YouTube strategy that's guaranteed to grow your channel.
Okay,
And we
good.
actually
So
do
I like
guarantee
that
it.
one a little bit better. There's a little bit more specificity, and I like some of the words you used there. So let's now back into this. You are finding the problem you're solving for quite often always shows up then in your therefore when you're first writing those. And we like to frame the story up top. So yours is about strategy. People are doing all this work, but they just don't have the right strategy in play. Is that right?
Right. When something works, they don't know why. When something's not working, they don't know why. And they can't reproduce results, and they end up getting frustrated and feel like they're spinning their wheels and like, I don't know how to like make this thing work. And so we'll come along and help coach them and like, okay, here, who are you? What are you trying to accomplish? What's your goals here? Then let's put together a strategy that actually does work. And then we'll coach them through implementing it. And we tell people, like, if you don't hit your goal after following this process in the 3 months, we will just continue to work with you for free until you do.
Okay. So what is it about your strategy that makes it unique, special, different than anybody else out there that they can only get uniquely through you?
A lot of other people focus primarily on antiquated tactics that don't work anymore. They used to work, but they don't anymore. And those tactics tend to revolve around metadata, keywords, around video editing styles and things. But we have found consistently for years that the thing that actually works is how quickly you get someone to feel something with you and your content and your brand. And that emotional connection is what gets them to be more likely to watch more of the content. More watch time leads to more, they subscribe more liberally to the channel, and they are more likely to come back to watch more. And thus the trust levels, the credibility levels go higher faster because of that emotional connection. And it converts to a transaction much more quickly as well. So it's not a manipulative thing. It's more like, let's just talk to people, because this is a person on the other end, not a robot. But most people, we say optimize for people, not for robots. Most people are optimizing for robots, but the robots are designed to watch viewer signals and figure out what are people connecting to here. The viewer signals is what deems the algorithm what's valuable and what's not the metadata and the keywords and the how long the video length is and things like that. So, that makes sense?
So, yeah, so you're humanizing it and you're basing your strategy against the logical, reasoned, antiquated, analytical approach. And you're saying, really, it comes back to this human approach. It's a little bit messier. There's more chaos in an emotional approach, but it's way more powerful. It's that whole concept of the hard skill versus the soft skill. Give me the hard skill because I can measure that. Give me the analytics. And what you're saying is, no, we're going to level you up in the soft skill of emotion, because we know, even though you can't measure every little aspect of it, we know it's more powerful. It keeps people coming back for more, and you have this human bond that you're creating. So that sounds like your core differentiator.
The caveat is that it can be measured because YouTube's algorithms measure it, and then they report to you the info in your YouTube analytics. And so not all of it can be measured, but you can see it with different metrics that they provide. You can kind of read between the lines and be like, here's what's happening and why this worked and why that didn't work. So let's reproduce it this way in the next video and things like that. So there are some metrics behind it.
Awesome. And of course, if you see your numbers going up, there's a metric right there. It's like, hey, I changed this. I started following Tim's approach, became more human, started using more storytelling in it. We're seeing it in the numbers here because that's the only thing we're doing.
Exactly. Because they'll be like, my views are up, my watch time is up, subscribers are up. One guy decided to take some of our process and put it in his webinar, and he had more sales in the first 2 minutes than he had ever had in any other webinar before.
Nice.
And he broke his previous record by 20x or something. So it's like you can see it in numbers and the results for sure.
And do you have a name for your process?
No. That's a good question. Should I name it?
Yeah. Hell yeah. Own it. I mean, you're just talking about.
We kind of do.
You got to get people to have their own brand. You got to do the same thing, man. You got to drink that same Kool-Aid. Name that thing.
My process is internally, we refer to it as people first.
Okay.
Because that's one of our 6 core values of our business is people first. And there's a lot behind that, but it also, not just in terms of how we treat people and customers and work with people, but it's also in terms of our strategy. Like we make content people first, not robot first.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And I'd like to have you get even more creative with it because you are primarily working on YouTube, right?
Yeah, we had a C4 because we had 4 C's of it was like create, connect. I forget the other 2, but something like that. But we thought that the C4 explosive growth thing would be a little bit too, I don't know, a little bit too violent, or I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. We just didn't go with it. But that we did have that in the back of our head at one time.
So I just, this stuff just pops into my brain. It's never, I don't know if it's any good or not, or I might even have seen it somewhere else. But what you're talking about is going from YouTube to WeTube. You want them to be invited into their world. And what you're doing is it's buds over bots. You want that viewer to be a buddy of yours. You want to be a buddy of them. And the only way you're going to do that is you can't fake it, man. You got to show real emotion, real humanity. And we're about helping you grow your impact and your viewership by a complete focus of, like you said, people first. How could you say that in a more interesting storytelling way? Buds over bots.
Yeah.
That's what we're about.
Okay.
I don't know if that's any good or not, but that's just what comes to mind. So let's go back to your second ABT. Read your statement of agreement, your and statement of agreement that we are trying to paint a brighter tomorrow. What did you say in that?
You want to grow your YouTube audience and to experience the freedom of a thriving business.
Okay. So, yeah, that's good. I'd like to get it even a little bit more powerful. And let's see if we can't insert the idea of strategy in that front line, in that first statement of agreement, so that we are framing the story. They know right away it's about strategy, what they're doing. So, you are a committed YouTube content creator. And if you are working off the right strategy, then you know that you could grow viewership and build that robust business you're looking for. But growth isn't coming like you could because you are relying on antiquated strategy to grow your viewership. Therefore, we are going to help you grow your audience in just 3 months through our proven strategy program that emphasizes, people over algorithms, buds over bots. That has grown businesses by as much as X amount. But I want you to get strategy in there right up top. If you had the right strategy, then you will have this marvelous business you're trying to build. But you don't have that business because you have antiquated strategy. Therefore, we are going to revitalize your strategy with this human approach. We're going to help you get the growth you seek by revitalizing your strategy through this people first approach that we do here.
So how important is it that the language we use here aligns with the language that our customer uses to describe their problem and the thing that they want?
Yeah, I think it's really good to start with that. See if you can align that language exactly. And then you might feel it's a little bit sterile. It might feel a little bit too generic. And then you could go in and insert some more colorful words or euphemisms or metaphor. But I think it's always really good if you can say it in their words.
Most of the time, the words that they use, because we survey our audience at the beginning of every year, every January, and we're like, hey, tell us about what you're working on, who you are, what your problems are. How can we help you with our content this year, overcome a lot of the obstacles that you face, basically. And so they literally just tell us, and it's open-ended, it's open for text box, not like objective. And we use that to really identify the language that most people are using to describe themselves and their problems. Most of the time, it's just like really generic. Like, I want more views on YouTube. I want more subscribers. I want to make more money. I want to go full time type of thing. And we know that the strategy is the thing that they need, but it doesn't feel like they've identified that the strategy is the thing that they need. They've identified that, like, I need to post more videos, or I need to be more outgoing, or I need to upgrade my camera, or I need to make longer videos, or something, right? And And so that's where I'm like, yeah, I
But those are
like
all
using strategies.
strategies, are
That's
they not?
accurate.
Those are tactics.
Yes, but I don't think that they've identified those things as strategies or not.
Well, but then you can do that for them, because one of the most powerful positions a brand can be in is highlight a blind spot for an audience. They don't even know that they don't know this stuff. So you could even say, you want all this to happen. And if you could tactically, build more views and do more shows then you believe that you can have this thing. But what you're lacking is a strategy. And so those tactics are not paying off for you. Therefore, so that would be another way to write an ABT, depending on who your audience is. If their tactic focused is their main problem, then write an ABT around that and roll that one out and do some ABT testing on it too, So, but the problem is you're being guided by tactics and not a strategy that will actually grow your viewership. Therefore, we will help you grow those views, through a purpose-driven, people-driven strategy, blah, blah, blah.
One of the things I like about this is it forces us as creators to focus on who our audience is, because another mistake a lot of creators make is they just want to make cool content, or they want to talk about themselves. And this is highlighting, no, people are watching your content because they care about themselves first, right? Now, hopefully they would get to also know, like, and trust you and care about you as a creator and as a brand. But it starts with them caring about themselves and what you're going to do for them. And this makes sure that stays front and center for the brand. Not like, hey, subscribe to my YouTube channel because I make family videos, or I'm going to teach you how to do better on your taxes, or like whatever, right? Like, I mean, that's still talking about them, but it doesn't have any emotion to it.
Right.
It's just like, here's what I do. And to your point earlier, like your point to me is like, Tim, you and like 1,000 other people, right? So get more specific in what makes you unique and different and makes you stand out from everybody else. And I think I like that's what this does, and makes it a little bit more tangible, and if it's a practical ad lib is what I'm calling it. I don't know if that's insulting or not, but I like it because it's like a fill in the blanks. Here's what you need. You just fill it in, and boom, you got it.
And start with that word "you." Do that pronoun switch, because it makes you focus on that audience. Who's your audience? What do they want? And why is that important to them? But why don't they have it? Therefore, how are you uniquely equipped to get it? That's my mantra over and over and over again, because that's where it all starts. Answer those questions and you'll be well on the way of writing your own ABT for your brand.
So once we've crafted our ABT statement, then in your experience, I have a couple of questions here. One, how long is too long? Because I could write a full paragraph here, which doesn't feel like it fits on the front page of my website anymore, or in the 5-second opening of my YouTube video or something like that. So one, how long is too long? And then two, once we have it dialed in, how should we use this? How should we, in terms of your experience, how do we integrate it into our content, into our website, into our brand? Like, where does it go? Is it in everything we do, or what?
Hell yeah. So first, answer the first question. I'm going to take you back about 35 years when I read this copywriting book that I just grabbed off the shelf. And I couldn't even tell you the title of it, but it had a huge impact on me. And this guy was just writing about direct mail copy. I didn't particularly care for direct mail copy. I was a writer around theater of the mind, video, or radio spots and that sort of thing. But I thought, well, I can learn from this guy. And I read, and he said something that I've never, ever forgotten, and it's my go-to. You want to communicate with vigor. Brevity is vigor. That's the beautiful thing about the ABT. So you're going to start, and they're going to be long. We call those an informational ABT because you got to start somewhere, and you're going to end up loading it full of stuff, and it's going to be generalized. And you go, okay, cool. This is kind of what I want to say. Then we're going to say, now we want you to go to the area end, and we want the other end and want to make it as vacuous as possible. We call that a conversational ABT. So it boils it down to, let's say in your case, it is strategy. Let's just use the word strategy. You want strategy. You don't have a good strategy. Therefore, we're going to give you a people first strategy. Then you're like, well, okay, that's what I'm trying to say here. And the test to that is, Tim, if you were standing in front of an audience of 5,000 people who had no idea who you are and what you do, they just knew it had something to do with video, you could start your whole presentation with just that vacuous ABT. You want a YouTube strategy. You don't have a YouTube strategy. I'm going to give you a human-centered YouTube strategy. Everybody in that room is going to immediately know who you are and what you're talking about. Now, it's the Goldilocks syndrome. So you've gone from too big, you've gone to too small. Now you're going to write when it's just right because you have dialed in on your single narrative. In this case, it's about strategy. It could be about tactics. It could be about viewership. It could be about a number of different things, but every ABT is about one thing. And then when you write that sucker, just look at it, say, remember what Park said for that old copywriting book? Communicate with vigor. Brevity is vigor. So having said that, find very illustrative words that really kind of leap off the page when you are writing that little ABT. It's more fun that way. Number 2, where do you use the ABT? You literally use the ABT in every form of communication. And as I teach it, I'll say, here's the first best place to use it because as I mentioned too at the beginning, all great compelling storytelling in business and organizational communications begins with understanding how to use the ABT because it builds your narrative intuition about setup, problem resolution. So after you're seeing this, after you're watching this, for the next month, every day, since you're already writing emails, you're going to habit stack on them. You already got to do it. Write at least 3 emails every day, starting with an ABT. You'll find it'll cut your email writing by 2/3. Your audience will actually respond to you because you make it really easy for them to digest what it is you're asking for. And you have a built-in CTA, a call to action in your therefore statement. But do it every single day. It'll become second nature to you. Go and tell somebody or share this episode with them. Teach them what you learned about the and, but, and therefore, that it has the 3 forces of story in it, agreement, contradiction, consequence. You want to begin with an aspirational ABT and statement to paint for a brighter tomorrow. Then you insert the but to create conflict that triggers the cause and effect pattern seeking brain. And therefore, it's waiting for you to close the story loop with your answer. So go and teach 2 people about the ABT because what I learned teaching this in a master's course at Arizona State University is you don't know what you don't know until you teach it and you articulate it. It will help really anchor these points in your brain. And then finally, you got some big communications challenge on your plate or you're doing that next YouTube video, begin it with an ABT. Start out with the ABT. And what I want you to do here is use this thing everywhere because the more you get it indoctrinated into yourself, the better communicator you are going to become overall.
Yeah, that's great. I practice story with my kids. I have seven kids. Our youngest is 4. Our oldest is 12.
How old are you?
Yeah, 41.
I'm one of 7 kids. And my mom and dad didn't start till they were 28 and 29 years old. And they knocked us 7 out in 9 years. So you did kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, we had 7 in 8 years.
Wow.
So we beat them by a little bit. Yeah. When we had twins that were born, and when they were born, we had 4 kids ages 2 and under for a season, which was a lot. But anyway, my point is like with our kids, I love practicing these, like the ABT and my storytelling and things on them. And because when they're like 6 and 7 years old, it's really hard to screw up a story. They just think anything you say is awesome at that point. So I just literally make up the character and I just say, and all he wanted was to have his mommy bird come and feed him worms or whatever. Right? He just like, and it forces me to on the fly, just think through these things, the and thing and but therefore, and just continually doing that over and over again. Or, the character, desire, obstacle, stakes, and climax. And,
well, just think about this
transformation
then, Tim,
stuff too.
For any sort of nursery rhyme, I say nursery rhyme. What's the first nursery rhyme that pops to mind?
Oh, shoot. I'm on the spot here. Mother Goose, but I don't know Mother Goose, actually. So
Little
Jack
Miss
and Jill?
Muffet, right? Okay, Jack and Jill.
Yeah, Middle Miss Muffet. Yeah, okay.
All right.
Whichever one.
Which one would you like to tackle, Jack and Jill or Little Miss Muffet?
Jack and Jill.
Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water. Jack fell down, broke his crown, and Jill came tumbling after, right? Yeah. So where's the ABT in that? That don't really use the word. You use the word and at the end, but Do you see how it's based off of an ABT? Jack and Jill went up the hill and they were fetching a pail of water. That's act one. But Jack fell down and broke his crown. Therefore, Jill came tumbling after. Virtually every nursery rhyme is set up. And let's take Little Miss Muffet. Little Miss Muffet sat on her tuffet, eating her curds and whey. Along came a spider who sat down beside her and frightened poor Miss Muffet away. Yeah. So where's the and? Little Miss Muffet sat on her tuffet, and she was eating her curds and whey. It's implied there, setting the stage. But here's the contradiction. Along came a spider who sat down beside her. What's the consequence of that? What happened? Therefore, frightened Little Miss Muffet away. So now when you're telling your kids your stories, the little bird was waiting for the worm, and mom showed up with this big, fat earthworm in her beaks, and the three chicks were reaching out to get it. But what they didn't know was this lumberjack at the bottom of the tree, and it was just about ready to cut the whole thing down. Oh my God, what's going to happen?
You're a good grandpa.
I got a
Do you have grandkids? Yeah, see, I bet. Yeah, he's like, I want to hear Grandpa tell stories. And so however you guys want to practice it, I do it with my kids because they're an easy, very forgiving audience. And they think I'm amazing right now. So I just milk that up for all I can. But however it is, where you're watching TV or just listening to the radio, or writing your emails, like one of the things we do with our clients is we try to teach them story spotting as one of the skills for being able to be better at storytelling, and just looking for all the stories all around you. You wake up in the morning, what do you want? And what's the reward if you get that? But therefore, like, you can do that when you wake up in the morning and just think through your calendar for the day. So. This is everywhere around us, guys, and it's what when we hear it done well, it's what grabs our attention and hooks our attention and holds our attention, and then ultimately gets people to care about what we're doing and want to engage in that on a more deeper level. So thank you, Park, for helping us understand all this. Give us a quick pitch for your podcast, because this is the podcast. I call them the podience. Sometimes they like it. Sometimes people don't. But
the podience, I like that.
Where can the podience go and hang out with you on Apple and Spotify and all the places?
Well, look, you are an important content creator on YouTube, and you know that if you use story to greater effect, then you're going to grow that viewership, but you're not really sure where to start. Therefore, every week I bring you a story artist from around the world that will help you craft and tell compelling stories that sell no matter what your medium is. So come on over to Business of Story. I'm happy to have you there. How's that for an ABT?
That was good. Is that the first time you've done that one, or has that one been rehearsed?
Just literally pulled that one out back here. But I've
got like
40,000 hours of doing this stuff,
Yeah. Well, great. Well, thank you so much for doing this. You guys go check it out. There's a link in the show notes of this podcast episode.
Thank you, Tim. I appreciate it.
Since Park and I first had that conversation, I have been thinking about how do I improve the story? And it's like one of those things that's so simple. Yeah, I think I'm probably just overthinking and just need to like go with it and run with it. And maybe that's where you're at too. Cause this is the type of thing is I could rewrite that ABT thing like 15 different ways, and like which way is the best way. It was really helpful for me to hear like specificity and getting into like make it stand out in some way with something unique, our proprietary method or our unique thing. I was like, oh man, that's good. Yes. Cool. So I'm going to keep working on that, but I don't want to let you go without leaving you with your power tip of the week. Every week in our episode, we just want to leave you with something that you can use or an update to YouTube, something you should know about how this platform is changing so you're better equipped to manage your community and grow your YouTube channel. And today I want to highlight an update to the community and comment section on YouTube. They have a new setting that lets you be a little bit more strict in how you moderate inappropriate comments. So there's an optional setting inside your YouTube studio that gives you now more control over potentially inappropriate comments on your channels. The setting is called Increase Strictness, and that setting will hold more comments for review when detecting detecting potentially inappropriate content that you might want to just, not have show up beneath your videos. So you can go check that out if you want. And if that's like, yes, I've been waiting to have more stricter moderation controls, then that is for you. Okay. So go check that out. Thank you guys, as always, for being a part of this amazing audience. Thanks for being here in the community. And I will see you guys again next week for another Video Creators Podcast episode. See you guys then. Bye.